Good afternoon. Uh, this is the second of two videos. Although the first video was not uploading, so I probably have to go back and do that one. Um, at any rate, this is the second of two videos. Behind me is the St. John's game, so the sound is off. So don't take it personally if I'm paying a little bit of attention to this as we come through this particular video. Uh, Here we go. I'm going to cut to the chase quickly. Hope you had a nice winter break. I don't know if Malloy had the same one because I never look at calendars, but it doesn't matter. So I hope you had a good break as such. I tried to go into special to what's where I'm looking for to do closed caption, and I'm going to try again. And we will see if that works. All right, it does work. Okay, that's great. At any rate, but I wanted a couple of things I'll squeeze into this video, which were in the previous one. One of that would be that I have an announcement to make, and I will make a special announcement, a posting on this as well, that speaks to the internship hours. I was a little off on explaining that to you the other day. I want to correct that before we get too much further. I had said I was going to assign hours per assignment, and I'm glad that I checked with Dr. Smith, and I wasn't exactly correct about that. Not that far off, but not exactly correct. The bottom line is what this course is allotted by the university is 10 hours. And so what I'm going to do is arbitrarily decide that the 10 hours will be split into two pieces. 2 hours for the policy brief that you're doing, and which on March 5th, and 8 hours for the policy presentation that you're going to make in the last day of class. So it's 10 hours total, 2 hours for the policy brief development due on March 5th, and 8 hours for the um, policy presentation. And that'll be it. It's as simple as that. And I'll be happy to sign off on that. If you have any question, you can just come back and check with me. Okay, so I'm looking at this caption thing and I'm seeing that it's a little hard to follow. So I apologize for those of you who want to try to look at it, but I think in the end it'll be better than not having it. So we'll go with that. Now, the first video, well, I'm going to try to get that first video up again because it was 45 minutes long and I really don't want to record it all over again. But this particular video is going to be far briefer. And what I want to do with this is to talk briefly about the March 5th assignment. I made a very, very rough draft PowerPoint I'm going to bring up. It's no different from what the syllabus is saying, but at least I'll have a chance to speak to it as such. So we'll do that next. Here we are going to pull that up as soon as I can find it. Bear with me. I'm not going to put it up on in Canvas. It's so brief that it's kind of silly. If I make it look better, maybe I will. I'll try to work with that instead. So come on, let's get this out of here. No, that's not correct. Okay, as I said, it's not a work of art. It's just something to help me catch myself. Which basically doing this is I would call a pre-assignment in many respects. And I like the way this is set up. It's a pre-assignment for the major assignment, which is the end of the semester. And so what you're basically doing is formulating your ideas for your policy brief, and then you're presenting them to me on the 5th, and then I'll respond to them. And then that feedback will help you shape how you mean to move towards the ultimate assignment in April. That's as simple as that. And it'll give me a chance to respond to how I think. I think I kind of know where most of you are going already on this, but it will be that much more explanatory. As I had said quite a few times, if you haven't done it already, you just have to do this. There's no other way around it. You need to get copies of a copy of the handbook for your school district. I went online trying to find some of the school districts I knew that you worked for, and I couldn't find them. They were buried. I don't know if they were up at all for that matter, but all I could find was Connecticut because I used to work there and I knew the secret code. I didn't put that one up because none of you work in Connecticut, but if you can't get your hands on an online version of your school district's policy handbook, or if you can't find it in their website or both, yeah, let me know and I'll give you the link to Connecticut link. The handbook is actually pretty well put together, and it will show you all the bells and whistles that you need to have. So that's your first order of visit. You really need to do that. You need to, just as I said, page through it, familiarize yourself with the format, and to go from there. And that will bring us to the slideshow that much more. Again, these are taken straight from the syllabus. There's nothing terribly exotic about what I have here. All right, so if you want to look at it from this point of view, this is a way to do it. There's 8 sections to this, 8 questions, if you want to put it on that count. What's the policy that was being reviewed? Several of you zeroed in on some policies that and made them clean in the discussion questions, and well too. But there's plenty of other things you can take a look at. Whatever you think has of import to you, or you think that has a specific matter of interest to the Western world, to the school districts in which you all work or part of in some way or another. Find something that interests you. That's the simplest way to put it. I'm not going to find fault with what you choose, although I would say you owe it to yourself to try to find something with some issues and themes associated with it, because down the line you're going to be asked about these very same premises in job interviews, and when you have the stripe on your shoulder to be the boss as such. So what's the policy that's being reviewed? Attach a copy of the policy to your paper. I'm not sure how you can do that if you're not doing it, if you're doing it online, but we'll figure that part out. Second premise would be, what's the problem, plural or not singular, and or the major issues the policy intended to address. So just lay out what it is, elaborate on it. Don't say it's about cell phones. That doesn't tell me a whole heck of a lot. You need to elaborate on the issues that seem to be prompting the fact that they were looking at this policy to begin with. This is a big one, I think. What are the indicators that a problem or issue exists, and for whom does it exist? That's politically an issue to pay attention to. I'll come back to that in a little bit. How do you know, or how did they indicate that they were paying attention to this particular issue? What prompted that? A simple way to answer that, and I'm not saying it's the only answer or the correct one. If you're not sure, as I said, you can always go back to NYSSBA, NYSSBA.org, and they will, you'll most likely find a model policy connected to that. It may not be your specific districts or schools policy. I should delineate before I go too far. Schools don't make policy unless you're a special entity. One or two of you do work in schools that I guess we could construe as special entities. But for everyone else, it's school district, it's school boards. All right. So make sure that you understand that. Sometimes the principals say, "Oh, it's the policy of the school to not wear your hat," things like that. And that is not a policy. That is a rule that was made by sometimes very arbitrarily by principals and so forth. So again, to come back to number three, what are the indicators that a problem exists? And then you go to who created and adopted the policy. Now, basically, it's going to be a combination. I think you're going to find it's going to be combinations of the federal government, state government, more likely state than federal, the school board, or some combination thereof. For the most part, you're going to find it from the state, but what you will also see, and this has come up in several conversations among the discussions over the past couple of weeks, the federal government doesn't make policy, but they sure do make you want to use the policy that they want you to use. I'm smiling about that. So what will happen, as an example, would be the federal government will make a policy about special education. And they'll say, yeah, now you have to go put that in motion. And what they will do is it'll send out the message to each of the 50 state education agencies. And then they will take it under advisement according to how that state creates and adopts policies about how they mean to what they mean to do about it next. Often, federal government will say, well, we have, $3 million set aside for implementing this policy. And basically they say, if the state wants some of that money, the state has to require that the districts are putting that policy in place. So that's how it kind of works as such. But the bulk of the policies you're going to see, I believe, I'm not sure about this, but I believe will be out of New York State Education Department, prompted by a groundswell of opinion about any number of issues or premises that are out there from the citizens of the state. That might be the source of how it began, but in the end, it's going to come from the the State Board of Regents. Okay, number 5, who might support this policy and who might oppose it? That is that political frame again. We're going to come back to that in a second. This is an important one too. It's just a smart one for you to have your finger on the pulse about. And that would be what constituents need to be informed and engaged to make the policy a success. Too often I've seen this ball dropped. People don't know what it's about, and then all of a sudden it lands on their lap. And that's when you cause distrust among the community members and amongst board members. And it can get unnecessarily cranky. And so one has to pay very close attention to that. I think I mentioned a couple of times I chaired a board policy review of the transportation policy in the school district. And frankly, I didn't think it was going to be all that complicated, but it turned into a Megillah, turned into an issue because the people in the district needed to know these things. And what we did was actually turn out to be very astute by involving everybody. Any kind of interest in this particular policy consideration was invited to sit in on the committee meetings. And sometimes those meetings got cranky because not everybody came to every meeting and didn't understand everything we were trying to pull together. But in the end, we developed a good faith thing, and people accepted. They co-created the policy, number one. Number two, they recognized that we had made every effort to accommodate all of the interest levels that we had. So that's a very important point. Also extremely important. How will the efficacy of the policy be measured and by whom? School districts and school boards and schools in general sometimes let this slip past folks. And however, the people on the Board of Education are usually it's very bright enough to know that everything has got to be evaluated every so often. And I would say that a lot of policies should have, or they don't always have, but some should have some kind of regular timetable about how the policy should be reviewed. What will happen sometimes is, I think somebody was telling us in one of the other meetings, there'll be board policies reviewed at every meeting, just to keep them out in front of people as such. And again, from a political angle, And I don't like to play politics, talk about politics so specifically in this class, but you cannot ignore it. Uh, a superintendent or her designee can get herself in lots of trouble if they haven't paying attention to the efficacy of the how well these policies are working, or if they're taking care to make sure that the policy is being implemented in the first place. It does happen. There's an awful lot of policies there, and things can get lost in the forest. And the last piece, and again, it's all out of the syllabus. Uh, has there been any significant impact since the policy adoption? If you're able to find that out, that would be great. And then you would describe the impact. I'm personally interested in that. And now to come back to the PowerPoint, the 45-minute PowerPoint I made before I'm making this one. I taught you some ways to look at impact, to project what you think the impacts will be. And if I can't get this to work, I'll come back and post that video tomorrow, maybe today, but more likely tomorrow. I can't figure out what went wrong. So what we'll do is we'll just go through the rest of these slides just for a second. I wanted to point out, these are just the questions again on their own individual slides. And I wanted to remind you about Bowman and Deal. We talked about Bowman and Deal 4 or 5 times already in the class, and we talked about the frames that dominate organizations, the mindset, if you want to use that word. That's a more familiar word lately. And what that is about is, in this case, we're talking about structural. Remember, that's the hierarchical nature of most school districts. We were talking about human resource, from a human resource perspective. A third piece was a symbolic piece. Now, you'll see symbolic policies posted in a district or handbook. For example, if they require that, as they probably all should do, I'm not pretty sure they must do it, but not everyone does do it. And they require pledge of allegiance to the flag every day by somebody, necessarily across the whole school, not necessarily out of the school office, but within each of the individual classrooms to start the day. That's a policy. And those are the kinds of things that are symbolic more than anything else. And then the last one is the political piece, where, and you can see that some of these premises certainly overlap with the idea of political as in power, political as in making sure that you're sharing resources and points of view. So you cannot forget that. And I said a moment ago, what are the indicators that a problem or issue exists, and for whom does it exist? That means you have to do some homework and break it down. What you might want to do if you don't know it firsthand, you might want to talk to a board member. You might want to talk to a veteran administrator who's got some history with it. If you're all else fails on that, you could also speak to, not sure this is the way to do it, but I'll give you a possible source is the union representation. Your union president certainly has a history in the district and makes it our duty to understand how the policies are in place or not in place to protect the membership. So they've got a pretty good history of things like that. I wouldn't go there first because their lens may not be terribly objective. That's a terrible thing to say, but I was a union officer for a long time, and my experience tells me that's a possibility. What are the indicators that a problem or issue exists and for whom it exists? So first thing that comes to mind is special education children. And all of the premises that go with that. E&L children, those are children, I would say anything that has to do with kids in need of any kind of grouping, probably have some sort of policy that's laid out by the federal government, more likely than not, that the districts are charged with enforcing. Who did it? We already spoke about that. There's the NYSSBA.org website address, and there's ed.gov. You use that website in the first or second week of the class. And that's got a host of all kinds of information for you. And who might support this policy and who might, there's that political frame again. All right. So might sound like a petty example, but let's say, for example, the district is looking at its transportation policy and has to adjust secondary busing times in favor of elementary. I'm not saying that's a real issue, but it could be. And now suddenly the secondary high school coaches are in an uproar, and all of their teams, kids and parents, because that throws off scheduling of competitions. I mean, that's a political frame issue. Those are the kind of things you cannot overlook. What constituents need, who to be informed. And again, I gave you the three categories. The politics we spoke about a couple of times already. How you communicate it. I mean, you can go to everybody's house and knock on their door and sit down and read the policy to them, and someone will still say you didn't communicate it. But there's also another way to look at communication, is that communication is also about input. So did you try to get input from people about the impact of this, what this might mean and what they feel about this? That's not, it's not leader-like not to try to find out what people are thinking and to make sure that they know what's expected of them. And how you mean to, for example, we're doing the busing idea before, as everybody getting on the bus at the same time, at the right time, and the transportation system running smoothly is a big thing. Okay, tremendous, especially in the suburban areas, any areas for that matter. And how you measure the impact, again, is a little gray to me. If you can find out from someone else whether the impact it has, what has changed as a result of this, would be the best way to approach that. If it's not, if you can't do that, then you will have this other video that will show you how to do some futures forecasting skills to project what you think the impact might be. That might be more important than finding out whether it worked or not, but I'll leave that up to you. And so that's basically it. If you have a question, you can shoot it over to me. But in the end, that's what this is meant to be. And I just wanted to give you a little boost as you move towards getting that done, because March 5th is fairly close. And with that, I'm going to hopefully be able to post this, because I wasn't able to post the other one, which is tough stuff.